I did want to ask you this though. With what we got in the DLC trailer, we're getting callbacks, we're getting returning characters, we're getting references, we're getting callbacks, we're getting all of that. I've noticed that there is a common complaint about base Xenoblade 3 is that there was much less callbacks than people were expecting, whether that be returning characters or returning places or whatever it was. I, for one, wasn't too upset about that because I knew going into the game that I didn't expect major cameos like Rex, Shulk. Everyone was like, Pyra and Myth are going to be back in the game, and I was like, I don't think so, but it would be great to see them back in the game. But even reviews kind of like misled people. They're like, oh, in the later half of the game is when you'll see more returning characters, but it ended up just being Melia and Nia. Honestly, I was fine with it because the callbacks that I loved seeing in Xenoblade 3 were the very subtle location and musical cameos, like hearing the Sword Valley theme in Great Swords Base, and even hearing the Xenoblade 1 theme song in Great Swords Base, or like hearing Magna Forest in Great Cod Falls, or like something like that. And like kind of knowing the history of the place you're in. But for you, what did you feel about that? Were you a little bummed out or upset about the lack of cameos, or were you like fine with it? Because another reason I was fine with it, because I was certain that we'd get a lot of people back in the DLC, and that's why I like doubled down on Founders. I was like, they put these statues here for a reason, and if they're not doing a DLC on the Founders, then they're just mean. They're just mean.
No, that's exactly how I felt with the Founders too. Yeah. It's like when people were thinking about the way the story would go, you know, people weren't thinking before Origin, they were thinking straight to the Founders, because that's just it's like they took a very key moment after the introduction to the city, after the, you know, how babies are made, all that. Yeah. And they're like, sit here, go to this place. Here's 6 statues. Here's like a light lore dump, and that's all we're leaving.
Yeah, like Monica basically, she was like, "Hey, you need to go here and you need to see these people because they're the first Ouroboros."
Ouroboros, but then you, as like a player, walk in there, and you might have played the previous game, so then you see that one looks like Shulk. This one sort of looks like Numa. That one gives more Phi Fong Wong. Like, what's going on here? So there's a few things there. As for returning characters, I think people's expectations sometimes with games, like when you let people think of a scenario for too long, they get upset when the scenario that they've imagined isn't the reality.
Yeah.
For me, one of the biggest crutches of Xenoblade 3 is literally Ionios itself as a mesh of 1 and 2's worlds, means that it can't go beyond the bounds. Besides Origin, it can't go beyond the bounds of mixing 1 and 2 zones together.
Yeah,
Which for the most part, it did it well enough, minus like some gripes I have, particularly like with Mac the Wildwood. I didn't think they went far enough there.
Yeah.
I think they could have done a much better job in that zone specifically. But I feel like they handled some of the cameos well enough. I definitely do think they are saving a few more of these reveals with the DLC, which is a bit of a shame. But overall, I felt 3 was mostly fine as it was. I don't think it needed to rely on 1 and 2, 1 and 2's casts to have created their own endearing cast. I've said it time and time and again. I think 3 has the best overall main cast, and that it was able to do that without leaning in too much on the pre-made, the already known characters within 1 and 2 stories. I think that tells quite a lot.
Yeah, and my thing with 3 is, as we got more trailers and we got more evidence and news and footage, I was like, I now want this to like be the story of the Ouroboros, and I don't want like, I personally thought that like if we get like a Pyre and Mithra cameo or like a Rex cameo, or like someone like comes in there and is like, hey, what's up, party? It would have taken away from the focus of the main game, in my opinion. Because like
you either had to have them go all in or as sparse as they did. And I'm personally glad they went for as sparse as they did.
Yeah, it really would have taken away from the focus of the narrative and from the focus of the Ouroboros crew, in my opinion. And like a lot of the criticisms I saw online was like, like they say things like, oh, this game was marketed as like a culmination of all 3 games as like cameos coming together, and I was like, this wasn't marketed like how Avengers Infinity War was marketed.
No one brought cameos. That's their insert.
Yeah. Hey guys, it's Nish Quick. Thanks so much for checking out that video. If you enjoyed it, check out the full episode on the right, and check out more episodes of the EXP Podcast on the left, and subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.